Patients getting paid. What a concept. If your story's anything like mine, you had to dial back your job or leave it altogether thanks to your chronic illness. The paychecks quit coming, but the bills didn't, right? I spent years weeding through the scam job sites for flexible jobs and scam trainings for how to start an online business. I learned about paying patient advocacy gigs by overhearing someone talking about them on a bus. It's crazy the amount of time, energy, and money I spent trying to figure out how to work for myself or others in a flexible way that could accommodate doctor's appointments and hospital infusions or just not feeling well. Take advantage of my years of learning these tough lessons and get right to how to do it for yourself by signing up for my course, Patients Getting Paid, where you'll learn where to find these jobs and how to put your best foot forward in getting them or how to create your own flexible opportunities. Sign up right now for more information. Go to FUMSnow.com/patients getting paid. Welcome to the FUMS Now podcast show, where you'll gain information, inspiration, and motivation for living your best life with multiple sclerosis. Find us online at FUMSnow.com. I'm your host, Kathy Reagan Young. Today's guest is Meg Lewellyn of BBHSwithMS.com. That stands for Boobs, Boots, and Hair with Multiple Sclerosis. That should tell you a little something about my guest, Meg. She's a straight shooter. She pulls no punches. She'll tell you exactly as she sees it and has experienced it. She's a very proud mom and an MSer who recently found relief from her chronic pain by using cannabis and has begun chronicling her marijuana adventures on her blog site. As if that's not enough, she recently added author to her list of accomplishments with her new book, Segway into My New Life. It's a great read, all about her life and her symptoms as they revealed themselves, her diagnostic story, and her first few attempts at medication. If you have little ones with you, you might want to listen to this episode when they're not around. It's Meg, and she's wide open. I love that about her. Let's go meet her. So, hey, Meg, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So first of all, congratulations on the book. It is so good. I loved it. I laughed and cried, and that is no joke. I literally laughed and cried. Our stories are so similar. It was a little scary, honestly. But so you were diagnosed in 2007, which was a while ago now. What made you want to write a book about it now?
Well, as I have just recently told you, I wrote this a long time ago. I actually wrote it kind of while it was happening. I think it was my therapy.
Yeah.
And then, it's like an elf on a shelf. I had a book on a shelf. And as I moved to different houses, that book on a shelf, and then I had like 15 thumb drives, all with like backups of backups, just traveled around with me. And I constantly told people, I wrote a book, but like
Right.
people save it all the time.
Right.
And it's like, what if I won the race? But it sat there and it sat there, and I didn't have the mental capacity to deal with it. And about 2 years ago, I brought it out because I really decided it's now or never. And I am a stubborn person in that if I put something out and I tell the world I'm going to do it, by God, I'm going to do my damnedest to do it. It's just part of my, upbringing.
DNA.
Yeah. And so I pulled it out, and it just became, as I said, overwhelming because it was still emotional for me. And so every time I would try to edit it and do rewrites, I would end up just sobbing. And emotions bring on the fog for me. And so I would start out with a great day and, spend an hour with my book and just be mush for the rest of a day. But that was the process. And so I spent a summer each day going through a chapter and, picking through it. The original book actually was much longer. It was closer to like 300 pages. And the final process of publishing really was kind of a shit show. It was just push it, because I couldn't deal with,
I need this done.
Edit it one more time. And I was like, please don't send this back to me because it will sit on the desk for another 6 months. And so I just said, I trust you that it's edited. I trust you that it looks good. Please just get it out. And so it went out, and there were people like in Australia publishing pictures of them holding my book, and I didn't even have my own copy. It took Amazon to get me my copy. And so like that was anxiety because I was like, I don't even know it's got my name on it, and I don't even know what it could be really crappy. And So it finally arrived, and I have to say kudos to Amazon and me and Chris and Jess who helped me. Like, it's a cool looking book. I mean,
It is.
The cover kind of has a remnant of being like leathery, which I love because I'm kind of an out. So I was very happy with it, other than it was so skinny. I was like, because I had all of these words and so many stories.
Yeah.
I had whittled it down, and I was disappointed in myself. I tried reading it. I didn't like it. And I just said, okay, I've got to stop. And then I gave myself a couple of weeks and I read it. And I have to be honest, I really was impressed with myself, which sounds kind of douchey.
No, it doesn't at all. No.
It feels like it does to me. But my memory issues, I don't remember it.
Yeah.
Like time to time, like honest to God, I could read it again today and be totally entertained because I know the stories, but I don't know my word choices. And I'm such a word lover that like the crafting of the words is part of telling the story. And that was the part that scared me. It wasn't
that's very obvious in your writing. You're really a good writer.
Thank you.
I really felt like I was there.
Yeah. And that was important to me. And so when I went out and I hadn't read it, that's what I was scared I hadn't captured, because that's the only reason I wanted to write the book, was to give people those feels. Like there's so much in life that goes on that's just bullshit that, and it wasn't, I didn't want to write it and be like, look, world, feel bad for me. I wanted to write it and say, look at, look at, and 100% read my book and look at where I am now and wonder, just like you got on the phone with me this morning and you were like, I have so many questions. And that's not like my grand teaser. Like I want to tell everybody. It's just, it takes a lot of time and energy to get healthy. And like to go for a 4-mile walk, like it takes me 2 hours to prepare for my walk. I'm not kidding. Like it's stretching, it's walking around the house, convincing myself that I have every possible thing that Artie might need. I mean, I'm like, I go crazy, but that's my life, and so that takes time. So then to turn around and find time to write about it and share all my stories, it's a challenge and it's something I'm working on. But as I said, I'm just excited to tell people. Yeah.
And I am too. That's why you're here.
I know.
So for those who haven't read it yet, and I am putting the emphasis on yet, I'll put a link to the book in the show notes for everybody. Give us your MS diagnosis story.
Okay. So
sorry to make you go back there.
But. No. I love telling these stories. So I've physically fit 37. My kids were 5, 7, and 9. I was very, very active with them. The first signs were a dead, numb tingling in my right foot. And the way I have always described it is, if your foot goes to sleep and you realize it has gone to sleep, before you stomp it and get the pins and needles, there is a heavy, numb, dead feeling to that extremity of your body. That is what I felt. And
that's a great description.
I stomped my foot all summer long. I was like doing a fucking hoedown, like all over the place. Yeah. And it never came back. And I was running 6 to 8 miles every single day. And I would get home from my run and I would get in the shower and I would get these electrical tinglings up my spine, which I now know is I can't say it. But
Laramite.
Yes, that thing. The hermit thing.
Yeah.
Laramite sign. The hermit thing. Yeah.
Right.
So I simplify. There's the hug, the hermit,
I like it.
And at that point, I thought I had a pinched nerve. There was just no way that there was anything that I, could be concerned about. I was too physically fit. I was finally done with producing babies. I had gotten my body back and I felt great, other than this numb, tingly stuff. And so I went home. I was on Martha's Vineyard with my kids that summer. And again, now I know it was 95 degrees out. Like, I mean, all of these things were like why my MS was screaming at me at that point. But I didn't know any of that. And I got back here and it was September and October and I was into the kids going back to school. And I was at the school waiting to pick them up, talking to other parents. And I realized I was peeing my pants. And it was still Indian summer, so I was wearing a sundress and I was standing on like wood chips. And so the people I was talking to weren't even aware of it happening. Yeah. But I was. And I mean, it was horrifying. And it wasn't like, there was no embarrassment. It was just, oh my God, what is wrong with me?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like people don't do this.
Right.
And so
different.
Yeah, I know. And so my journey, the only doctors I had ever known were my OBGYNs, giving birth to my kids. And so that's who I went to. And I happen to live in an area where, unfortunately, there are a lot of people that have MS, but there are also a lot of people who know about it. And so I was diagnosed very quickly, from start to finish, I think less than 2 months, really.
Wow. That's great.
And yeah, it was a whirlwind. And I was initially, and this is something I actually don't think I mentioned in the book. As I said, I trimmed out a lot. I was initially diagnosed with transverse mellitus.
Yeah.
And, which I was told was a temporary thing. And so that really kind of put that crazy anxiety and nervousness of what is wrong with me, it placated it a little bit.
Yeah.
I believed through it all, like, well, the doctor said, so like, you want me to have another test? Sure. Because it's going to be gone next year.
Right.
It's going to be fine. And so that actually was beneficial that they misdiagnosed me, because I took that as kind of a calming thing.
Right.
And that let me ease into, no, actually it's not going to be gone.
Right.
And it's actually incurable. And actually it's going to mess with you every single day, but welcome.
Yeah. Oh.
So that was the start of it.
Yeah. And by the way, just FYI, you did put that in the book.
Yeah, I know. I realized that halfway through reading it. But I just wanted to go with it because it was like flowing and I sounded like I was intelligent. So I was just going to go. Yeah,
no, that was good. Yeah. So like you mentioned that you had these 3 little ones at the time. And I loved that you were really honest and upfront with them. That's what I did with my kids too. I get questions about that a lot. Like, should I tell my kids? If so, how do? So anyway, I'm a big proponent for age appropriate disclosure.
Well, Kathy, and I agree with you. And that's actually, I very, very rarely get upset, angry, annoyed with MSers that reach out to me. And I think historically, the people that I've gotten most annoyed with are, I have had a couple of people who are like, I've had MS for the last 3 years and I haven't told my teenagers and I can't imagine. I'm like, my God, what do they think is going on?
Right.
Like what
Mom's drunk all the time.
Yes.
Right.
And I was like, I don't think that's any better. I think the disease is better than them. My mom's trashed all the time because I can guarantee you, even if you think you're hiding it from your kids, you're not. Newsflash. They're really, really smart.
Yeah.
And oftentimes annoying, but really smart.
Yes, right. Very perceptive. That's right. So how did you tell your kids, and what were their reactions?
They knew from the get-go that something was going on because mommy was going to the doctor. And that even had to be revealed because, as I explained in my book, I was with them 24/7. I was the one. And so for me to not be in class volunteering, one day was immediate, like, Mom, where were you? So there was not going to be lying, ever. And, the dilemma I had was when I got that, I did mention in my book that I was diagnosed with transverse mellitus. And when I got transverse mellitus, I told them about that.
Yeah.
I was like, hey, guys, it's temporary. Mom's going to be fine. I got this. And so, again, I think that kind of helped them ease into it. I was like, okay, Mom's got something wrong, and And then when I got the diagnosis for the MS, I was thinking, maybe I don't need to change what I've told them right now, because so many people say, oh, I had an exacerbation or 2, and then I was fine, for a year, for 5 years, for 10 years. And so what if that happened to me? And like, do I really need my kids to have that burden on them that mommy is diseased?
Right.
And, and so I hemmed and hawed and for about 2 seconds. And then I realized, like, I don't lie to them, and I don't want them to ever hear from someone else, something about me. And so I just decided, I sat them down and I said, it's permanent. It's everything that I told you, but it's,
and so much more.
Yeah. Well, and I explained to them that the scenario of an electrical cord. And I said, if you took an electrical cord and you took your, X-Acto knife and you put slits in it, your light might go on, but it also might not, and it might blink. And that's how my spinal cord is. And I mean, my youngest was like, can't we get your spine a raincoat? I mean, he was 5.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was
so
like
cute.
And those things are what helped me get through it. One of the stories I put on my blog, but I didn't include in the book, was shortly after telling them about my diagnosis. It was going to be my birthday, and my youngest had asked me if I was going to the grocery store, and I said yes. And he said, "Can you see if they have feet?" And I thought he meant, well, pig's feet. Like, he had, some students that were from Somalia, and there was like some food and so I was like, maybe it's pig's feet. Yeah. And he's like, no, new feet for you, so you don't have MS.
Oh, how cute.
My 9-year-old is like, so then, I was like, okay, I'll check. And so then I dropped them off at school and went to pick them up. And I thought for sure he would forget. And he came running out and he's like, did you check? Did you get a fit? And my oldest was like, dude, it's not at the, because he's like, did you go to the to the butcher and get feet? And he's like, it's not the butcher, it's the baker. And they got in this huge argument. And I was like, if they can make fun of this, then so can I.
Yeah.
I took kind of the guidance from them.
Yeah. Took a cue.
Yeah.
Love it. Love it. Our kids can help us in so many ways.
Yeah, they're amazing.
They are. So you were 37 when you were diagnosed and had been used to running, as you said, 6 to 8 miles a day, which holy shit, by the way. Wow. That's impressive. And going to the gym and swimming every day. I'm going to use you as my little, I don't know. You're going to be on my shoulder, I think, teling me to carry my ass to the gym because I need you.
I'm really happy to sit on your shoulder.
Thank you. I need somebody too because anyway, I digress.
You know what? I can just send you daily texts like, hey, loser,
Lord.
Hey, loser, have you gone out and exercised yet?
Okay, I'm seeing I shouldn't have brought this up. Anyway, but MS really set you back from all of that. How bad did it get?
So to begin with, in my initial years, it didn't. I stayed physically active and I stayed on top of the pain. The only time I had significant pain to speak of was when I was working out. And which sounds crazy because it just made me work out more, but I'm of the belief no pain, no gain. And so that worked out really, really well for me.
Yeah, right.
And everybody kept saying it, exercise is great. And so I just kept at it. As I said, after getting diagnosed, I took running the streets of Seattle inside and started doing elliptical training. And then I got my personal training certification and became a personal trainer, started swimming more. And, just that was how I was attacking the disease.
Yeah.
But I was also going through the process of a divorce and getting my own house and returning to the workforce for the first time after 12 years. And with being a single mom and working 40 plus hours and trying to do all of the super mommy things and then eventually starting online dating and meeting people, something had to give, and exercise was given up. And sitting in front of a computer 40 plus hours a week, having not sat for more than 5 minutes in my life, it just devastated my body. And I went from, as I said, pain only when I was working out to chronic pain that was so severe that I honestly was not sure how I was going to get through another day. I always tell people I was never suicidal, but every single day I went to bed thinking, how the hell am I going to do this again tomorrow? There was, and it was just, it seemed like an absolute dead end. And that made me really sad because having gotten away from the situation I was in my marriage, having gone through online dating and had success with that, and having met this amazing man that's now my husband, I knew that I should be filled with like elation and happiness and just a huge respect for what I had accomplished. And yet I couldn't because the pain, I describe the pain as when chronic pain is like putting a bubble over your head. And it's not like a gentle bubble. It's a bubble with like spikes and loud noises and bright lights. And you're just trying to deal with that. Everything on the outside, just, it doesn't matter because all you can think about is the pain. And, I got to the point, as I said, where I really, really didn't know. And this wonderful man that I met, who was always encouraging me, kept saying I needed to go back to the doctor because we had played around with different pain meds and I had been on methadone and that had worked for a while, but eventually my body got used to it. And so they wanted to increase the dosage. And I was very, very hesitant being an opioid. And so then, I also was very honest about the fact that I discovered unwittingly that the pain that I was talking about, if I had a glass of wine or a beer, it took the pain from a 10 to a 5. Yeah. And not in any drunk way. No. Just, so I self-medicated on top of all of the drugs, the pharmaceutical drugs that I was on for years, because I would come home from having gotten up at 6 and, gotten the kids to school and worked and come home at 4, do homework, and everybody's got soccer practice. When I knew that the day was over as far as my obligation to drive, I would pour myself a drink and I would have a drink an hour until I went to bed, which one would say, well, I mean, you were in pain. The problem was I was having a drink an hour from 5 to midnight or 1 when I finally would go to bed, and I would sleep for 4 or 5 hours and then get up and do it all over again. And my body was just chronically dehydrated and not healthy. And yet it was the only way that I could make it through the days. Yeah. And so I had gotten to the
Not
point
good.
where I had told my doctor about that. I was always very, very honest. And that actually led to the doctors looking at a whole new family of pain meds for me, and which was interesting. Yeah. And now they ended up to be terrible, but they worked initially, and they were an antidepressant that are now sometimes prescribed for neurological pain. And the first one, I gained 25 pounds in 8 weeks.
Oh, geez.
So here's the thing. Like, I'm not a vain person in that 99% of the time I wake up, I put clothes on, I brush my hair, I brush my teeth, and I go. I don't wear makeup. I don't care. I mean, I care, but not that much.
Right.
And yet I have always been that way because I've been physically fit. I have not had to worry about clothes fitting me or covering roles that I didn't feel comfortable with. And that's where I found myself. And I had never been there before. And I was devastated. I was the person who was in the grocery store, like with huge cardigans on and just trying to, like, I was doing all of those nonverbal cues that you see other people that are just miserable because they're overweight or they're in pain. And I was that person, and I didn't know how I had become that person, because I got MS and I was great and I was strong, and then I wasn't. And it all just compounded. And again, meanwhile, on the outside, my life is going swimmingly well. Because I got a job, I got a house, I have a boyfriend. I mean, it was all going great. And yet it wasn't. And I went to my doctor, and the final decision was I was either going to come off of the pain meds that I was on and go on Lyrica, or I was going to try cannabis.
Hello.
And well, I mean, we went home and we watched a video about Lyrica. Like, that's how close I was to taking Lyrica. And what I now know, which I didn't know then, is Lyrica is basically gabapentin, which is neurotonin, on steroids. And I had been on gabapentin basically from the day I was diagnosed. When the poker playing doctor told me I have MS and I walked out of his office that very first day, I walked out with a prescription for gabapentin. And I have now read research and studies that show that neurotonin is shown and proven to stop the brain's ability to form new synapses.
Wow.
So we talk about cognitive issues.
Yes.
And I am now saying, holy shit, world, look at me. Like, I am talking. I'm sitting here doing bong reps as we're doing this interview. Like, I am a coherent, put together person because of this medicine. And I am doing things because of this medicine. The medicine I was on before didn't allow all of my neurons to fire. And so Lyrica was what I was considering. And now it scares the bejesus out of me to think that crossroads, that fork in the road. I was so close to choosing the Lyrica. And if I had, I would not have done Lyrica and cannabis. Like, I don't know why. I just wouldn't have. And if I had gone with the Lyrica, I have no doubt that I would still be 50 pounds overweight, and I would be a drooling fat slob on my couch. I wouldn't have a book out. I wouldn't be married. I don't have a doubt in my mind, because I did not have the capacity to do any of the things that I've done in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And so that's a real wake-up call for me, because again, I had no idea that any of this was going to happen. I just wanted the pain to stop.
Yeah. And it has.
I know. God.
Yay. So, as I said, our stories are so similar. It's kind of crazy. And in that sort of department, you talked about like visualizing the meds. I think it was Ty Sabri in the book, going into your bloodstream like knights on horseback riding in to beat the shit out of this disease, which I loved. I love that visualization. And again, we're so similar. When I was first diagnosed, I was in bed or on the sofa for 6 weeks, and I felt so out of control. I needed to find something that I could feel in control of. So I started visualizing that my lesions on my brain were being like crushed by scrubbing bubbles. You remember that TV ad?
Yep. Oh yeah. I know scrubbing
they were
bubbles.
Scrubbing my lesions off my brain, and it was so empowering. I mean, it was all that I had energy for. It's all I could do, but I felt like I was doing something.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to put that out there and suggest to the listeners as well, because obviously it's something that you can feel empowered by doing and envisioning whatever you want kicking the shit out of your MS.
Well,
It
and you
really
can
feels
do it
good.
anywhere and anytime.
Exactly. And P.S. that can stimulate some beneficial hormones as well. Do you still use imagery at all?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have, when I read this question, preparing for the show, I was thinking, I had a blog post that I wrote about a year ago, again, as I'm learning and beginning to understand more about cannabis and how, not, if, but how it is helping me.
Yeah.
Terpenes is something that, anybody who wants to understand more about how, this plant medically could be helping, terpenes is something to research. Okay. And terpenes are in every plant. It's basically like sap. It is the thick residue, smelly thing that,
Gotcha.
I lived on the East Coast, maple syrup, that's terpenes. Right. And so there are terpenes of all different, and like peppermint terpene can, be mood lifting, and there are different, and the terpenes have different qualities and effects. And a lot of them are anti-inflammatory. So there are 5 or 6 that are like my favorites. Mm-hmm. But the idea behind the terpenes and the cannabinoids is that I have visualized. I told my kids that, it was my spinal cord, because most of my lesions are actually, I only have one lesion in my brain. Everything else is in my spine. And so, visualizing that electrical cord that I had told my kids, and you've got the wires that are sticking out because they're no longer connected. And I have always imagined, as I am consuming my cannabis, that the terpenes are these little, and the cannabinoids are these little bubble people that are going into my body, and they have little hands, and they get to where the broken wires are, and they join hands. So then my neurons can fire and connect.
Nice.
Now, in some ways, that is actually what's happening.
Yeah.
And yet I didn't know any of that. That was just something I drew one night, and right. I was drawing, and I came up with this picture, and I was like, it made sense to me. And as I said, now I understand that is kind of, in really layman's terms, what is happening. But it is powerful to imagine that, because we were also talking, placebo is a thing,
It is a thing.
You asked what my advice with cannabis, and cannabis, really, my advice would be mellow out about it. It's not something to be as fearful of it as we are. Right. Don't
fear the reefer.
Yeah, don't feel the reefer. That's a joke around here. I mean, we got Mom's 420 blazing screamed out at least 15 times today. My stepson is a cop, like literally a cop in uniform in my town that I live in. I have a unique life.
Yes, you do.
I get that, but the thing that with cannabis that as I said to you, when you are given a prescription of a new medicine to try from the doctor, you don't walk away usually with right. doubt and pessimism, and that's what people feel towards cannabis. And, mm-hmm. And the other thing I try to explain to people, like, I have a unique scenario because I don't know if it's liver damage. I mean, my blood tests are, all my blood work is normal. So I don't know, but I can consume copious amounts of cannabis and I don't get stoned. It may be just chemically and that makes it unique for me, because I'm just like, oh yeah, just take a puff. I was so careful to begin with because I didn't want to get stoned, and I would take a little bit more and a little bit more. And then finally I had somebody who's in the medical industry come and try to do what they used to do, which is assess what your dosing level is. So then you could, conceivably have a capsule that you take 4 times a day, that has 1,000 milligrams of, THC and CBD, whatever it is you need. Yeah. And so they came out and worked with me 2 or 3 times and finally said, okay, we give, you don't get high. and that's humorous, but it also, for me, it means I am spending a whole lot of money, and that's why we're growing now on, on cannabis, but just going in and believing that this can help is one of the most powerful things. I think, in this last year, I have always said that I eat healthy, and yet I now am blown away with my relationship with food now, because, my body really doesn't want anything but like the top 10, really, really good foods. And that's not me. I would really like to eat French fries. Yeah. But if I do, I end up, because I have chronic constipation from some of the opioids. Like if I have French fries, even just a few, I can pay the consequences and be backed up for 2 or 3 weeks. And so it's all of those things. And paying attention, because when I was under the blanket, I always say it's a wet blanket of the pharmaceutical drugs and the MS fog and the pain, I wasn't aware of anything. I couldn't feel anything in my body but the screaming pain. And now with cannabis, like, I feel hungry, I feel pain, and I realize that it's because my lower back is just on fire and I haven't stretched. You know, I realize that my lower back is hurting because it's actually my legs that are, you know, it's like, I am making a connection that I used to have as a physically fit, you know, athlete. I mind body connection was always there, and that left. And I don't, you know, I always thought that that was the MS. And I now am firmly believing that it was the pharmaceutical drugs. And the pain and the pain. You know, I became angry at my body and I stopped listening to it. I just was like, you know, I went back to smoking cigarettes. I mean, I was, you know, if you're going to do this to me and I'm going to be sick, then
take
screw
this.
You.
Gotcha.
Screw you. You know? And so I don't, you know, and I am fully recognizing the fact that when I say my life is so different in the last year, I've lost, you know, 50 pounds, like, I quit smoking. I get that, like, all of those things are part of why I am feeling so good. It is not just the cannabis. I am not saying, you know, it's cannabis and only cannabis.
Right.
And I am constantly now adding things like, you know, turmeric was something that I used to always take that never did anything. I'm now finding it is helping. And so, but now that I've added that, I don't add anything else for another 2 to 3 weeks, because I want to know, I don't want to end up taking 50 pills a morning and not having to.
Right. Yep. That's smart. That's a smart way of doing it. The name of your book is Segway into My New Life. Can you share with everybody why you chose that title and who Mojo is?
So Mojo is my Segway, which is an actual legit Segway. When I was diagnosed and my kids were little, everybody, my doctor, my family, wanted me to get a scooter. And, you know, I explained in the book, I immediately I added the word geriatric because it's old people. And I know there are young people, and I know there are badasses that are in wheelchairs. Like, it was not me, you know, judging anybody else. It was just me personally. I didn't want a scooter. And I realized, I was giving the kids a bath one night and I was standing over them, and I realized my biggest thing was I never wanted people to look down on me. You know, and if I was seated and I was, you know, pulling up to people who were standing, you know, talking, they would always be looking down on me. And so that just kind of ruled that out. And I worked at my children's school, and there was a young boy who has a physical disability. And one day I saw just a head floating. I mean, it was way up and it was just floating. I was like, what the hell? And so I went running down, and it was this little boy on a miniature. I mean, because he was a little kid, like they had it like personally made for him, Segway. And I knew enough about him and watched him over the years. Like, some days he used a cane, some an arm crutch, it ended up he had polio as a child, I think. But he had varying, differences in days. I mean, I had an affinity with him because I got it. Like, my wonky legs, big wonky legs. But it made me think, like, I've seen him struggle to stand similar to my struggles. Maybe I could ride one. And so I researched it. I found we had a Segway store. I went to the store. Jack, my Segway dude, was amazing. Ended up renting one for 3 days when my parents were in town. And I just, being back out, having been a runner, I knew everybody in my neighborhood. And for 6 months, I had done nothing but drive around in my car. And you don't have the same experience when you're behind the wheel of your car.
Truth.
And the first night I went out, my kids were like running to keep up with me because the thing can go like 14 miles an hour, which was so amazing because they could get away from them.
Yeah,
and
right.
I was the best at like playing tag after that. I mean, it was amazing.
I bet.
But I rented it for 3 days. And I mean, I did things like I went on a hike with my kids, like badass hike, because it can go anywhere. And I was like, this is it. And I'd been told by the guy at the store that because of an agreement that the guy who invented it made with, he invented the wheelchair that climbs upstairs, the iBot wheelchair, and he sold it to Johnson & Johnson. And part of that sale was that the developer or inventor agreed that he would never market another invention of his as a disability mobility aid.
Oh, gotcha.
And so they could never, like, Segway really wanted to try to do an insurance coverage program to try to get more people with disabilities, but they couldn't because of that agreement. Yeah. And so it was like $6,000. There aren't used Segways just hanging out on Craigslist.
Right.
At least I worked 10 years ago. And, my dad was in town and he walked into the kitchen after I had just sat down to look up, like how much they were. And I was like, I want one. And he's like, we'll get you one. And, I didn't put it in my book. When I said to my husband, that night when he came home from work, and I was just like, I need, and he wasn't really in support of me. He didn't understand why I was renting it because he said, we can't afford it. And so when he got home and I said, I want one. And he said, well, we can't afford it. And I said, it's okay because my dad is going to help with it. And he said, no, I absolutely forbid that.
Oh, God.
And here's the thing. And my dad was like in the other room and he just started laughing. He's like, my God, after 12 years, he doesn't know that if you forbid something, it's going to fucking happen.
Right.
And he's like, it's just like how, and so it arrived and it was a game changer. It allowed me to do all of the things that I felt MS had taken away from me.
Yeah.
Going down on the beach and doing things like my kids had sleepover camp and I was able to be a chaperone and play capture the flag until midnight on fields and win every single time because the Segway is so fast.
Right.
But and it was a unique scenario. I mean, it brought so much more attention to me than a scooter would have. Mm-hmm. But I felt like it was a more positive.
Yeah.
People were focused on the Segway and not on why is this lady that doesn't look like she should be on the Segway Segway.
Right.
Which is what they would do if I have a cane or I have an arm crutch that I use in public. And all the time, people just stare at me because they are so intrigued to know what is wrong with that physically fit woman.
Right.
I had a guy come up to me in the grocery store like a week ago, like ran across the store and was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. What happened?
Oh,
and my husband and I was the weirdest. And my husband looked at me and like, what? I was like, I don't know. I was like, I have MS. And he's like, oh, okay. Have a good day.
Oh, God.
It's like, and I would prefer to have people ask than not.
Yeah.
But I mean, the Segway, as I said, it really became about the Segway. And I had people, my doctor wrote it. I had people ask all the time, is it difficult? And my, immediate response was, no, would you like to try it? Because I wanted people to experience, and understand. And so I had this routine that I had a piece of PVC pipe mounted on the front that I had my cane in because I couldn't get on or off it without the cane. Mm-hmm. And I would just pull up to somebody and take my cane and I would get off and I'd like this 10-second spiel, get on, find your balance. Okay, now you're ready to take off. Mm-hmm. And I was in Costco one day and this guy, everywhere I turned, he was there like staring at me and my kids and he looked like a bad, mean dude. And I finally went up to him on the Segway and said, I noticed you're staring at me and my kids. Is there a problem? And he's like, no, I just want to know about this thing. Ends up, he was a W amputee that goes to Burning Man every year. And he was like, I think I could ride that. And I was like, do you want to try it? Not lying to you, Kathy. 45 minutes later, Costco security was still trying to find the guy because he was just zooming in and out and would wave at me and this is awesome.
Oh, funny.
And I'm like, and if I had a geriatric scooter, if I had gotten a wheelchair, that wouldn't have happened.
Right. Yeah.
And it just, at the end of the day, it seemed like the perfect thing for me.
Yeah. It's much more you, Meg, for sure.
Well, and the sad thing is it's been in my garage plugged in for the last 7 years. Mm. And my kids used to beg to ride it. And now when my kids come home, I'm like, will somebody please take the Segway for a ride? Right. Because you're supposed to, wear down the battery. But I'm going to.
Not happening.
I mean, I chaired my children's auction the year after I was diagnosed and right after I'd gotten the Segway and ended up impromptu adding a line item to our auction evening, which was $25 gives you a 10-minute ride on Meg's Segway. We made $4,000.
Oh my gosh. That's
awesome. All the drunk parents lined up out in the courtyard to drive Meg's Segway. I had two friends that I trained on how to teach people how to drive it because I was the auction chair and I was behind the scenes doing stuff. Right. Left it out there, took my cane, went back into my back office and was like, I hope it's there when I get done.
That's great. So, and the name, you named it or your kids named it Mojo?
Mojo. My kids named it, and it was just Mom's got good mojo.
Yeah, I mean that's awesome. Perfect.
Yep.
Perfect.
Yep.
Well, obviously, you're a big proponent for medical marijuana and CBD usage, along with a healthy diet and exercise, like you said. And in fact, now you're showcasing your journey on your blog as a marijuana lifestyle blog, right?
Yes.
So, can you share with us what you're doing now and what's working for you? And what's you shared with me. We haven't talked about this. Maybe I shouldn't be saying this, but you've got a new blog coming out next week, right? So, what's up with that?
Well, I'm just updating my blog.
Oh, gotcha.
And so it's been, I've got a new logo. And as you said, I mean, it always was
nice.
Finding the reasons to laugh and smile, I think was, my tagline. And now it really is, I still, am going to tell the stories. I mean, shit NATO that happened because of my chronic constipation last month is always going to be, in me and coming out. Literally. Sometimes.
Pardon the pun. Yes.
But just a new look, because one of the things, so I started my blog 6 years ago when I had a job and I had these stories. I felt like I had written the book, but there was more to tell. And so it was just something I did on the side. And the company I was working for actually was bought out by another company, and we were all laid off, and which was devastating to most of the people I work with, because it was a small startup and they had all been there from the start. And the company locked us in a room for like 20 minutes while they shut down all of our, interconnectivity and accounts and stuff, and then told us we were all laid off. And I, having worked there for 5 years, I got like 3 months severance, and I got COBRA'd in. So I had medical, and I really disliked my job. I mean,
so
really,
this was quite the blessing.
And I said that part of it was working, and that brought the pain on. The stress from being in a really, really unhappy work scenario was also a component. And so when they told us that we were being laid off, I mean, people were crying, and like, I was over the moon. Like, I had to control myself to not jump up and down and be like, oh my God, this is the best day ever. Because I would never have quit that job, because it was my responsibility. I wanted a divorce. I wanted to be out on my own. Then damn it, I got to have a job, and I've got to support my kids. And medical benefits was huge.
Sure.
And not only did I manage to get a job after not doing anything for 12 years, but I got a job that paid well and had decent benefits.
Yeah.
And was really flexible. I could work from home. I mean, it was like, I just really, really did not enjoy my job at all. And so when that happened and I went to a headhunter, I was struggling because I had not done anything other than this job and being a mom. And I didn't even know what industry to look. I would go onto Indeed.com and they would say, type a keyword word, like, what job are you looking for? I would type in kind and nice, like literally. I wanted to work for somebody who was just looking for somebody that was kind and nice, because I could be those things. Like, and I had always assumed that I would become a teacher because I worked at my kids' school. And when I was diagnosed and I got the divorce, the problem with what I was doing, because I wanted to become an aide for students with autism, is in our area, education is not that well funded. And so every spring, all of the newly employed people are laid off for the summer. And then in September, you get, you go back out and you look for a job. I couldn't afford to not have medical benefits.
Yeah.
And so after my first year with the pending layoff, I had to go find another job. And that made me sad, because I really was meant to work with kids, but so that didn't happen. And so when I was laid off, I went to this headhunter who just happened to be, in his former life, was a writer for USA Today. And I had been told, like, don't be naive. If you are in the job hunt, you need to have all your ducks in a row as far as social media. Know what you have out there. Like, don't have, like a video of your roommate raping somebody and think that they're going to hire you. It's just not going to happen. And so I was like, okay, I do have social media, because I have, my blog, and I've got, at that point I had about 10,000 followers, and I was like, and I had, a Twitter, I think the Twitter account that had like 3,000 or 4,000, and it was about the MS. And I wrote about things like sexual dysfunction and my pants. And I was like, I'm not going to take that down. And so I wanted to address that with him, because I knew that, and So he's like, well, this blog, let me pull it up. And within about 2 minutes, I couldn't get his attention because he was reading my blog. And he read a whole post and he's like, this is good. Like, you're a good writer. You should be a writer. So his headhunter sent me home, like, don't look for a job, try writing. And so like my then boyfriend came home and I was like, yeah, I was told not to get a job. To just keep But the great thing is he supported it.
That's
and he
great.
was like, and I had sold my home and I had made a profit so that I didn't feel I was a financial burden to him, and that I had the ability that I could take a little bit of time. I had an HSA, so I had some money in savings that I could put towards, medical expenses. They should come about. Yep. And so I thought I'd give it a shot. And it was a nice little 18 months of, me. And if I didn't have the blog, I'm really not sure what would have gotten me through, because that was the period of time where I was on the couch in pain, no longer needing to get up and actually function because I had been laid off of my job.
Right.
And it was just a spiral. And the only thing I did was write my blog and connect with people and pimp it out. And that was all well and good. And I think probably the farthest I would get with it, had it not been for the shakedown with the pain and finally, and I understand it is vain and sad of me that I say that it took me putting on 40 pounds and feeling like a fat fuck to actually get my life in order and get healthy again. But like, it did. And there are so many people that are out there that are unhappy with how their bodies look and how they function. And it can be so overwhelming because you don't know where to start.
Right. Yeah.
And I got a message on my Instagram. I don't know what it was. The other, and probably Facebook, but it was like, 1 year ago today, and it popped up with a picture, and it was the post that I had written on the day. So 2 years ago, I came off of all of my medications and I started using cannabis and CBD. September of last year, so 2017, I got the flu for the first time in my entire life.
Ugh,
and that led to the worst flare I have ever had in my life. I didn't pull out of that flare until January. And at that point in time, during the last month of that, I had made the decision that I was done being pathetic. Like, I didn't have a job. I had no excuse to not go out and walk. And I started posting a selfie a day on Instagram, which I'd never done a selfie. I hated selfies when I went for a walk. And again, I told you, like, I don't ever put anything out into the universe if I don't plan on following through. So that one day, and it was the post that I had was like, made it 10 minutes with the dog, going to try to make it another minute tomorrow. That was the start of that. And that was a year ago today. Or not today, like earlier this week. Yeah. And to look at where I am now, to look at, like, I got home yesterday and it pouring rain, and I, looked at my little thing and it said I'd gone like 3.9 miles, and I was disappointed in myself because I felt like I could have gone farther. Like, huge difference in where I was. Yeah. And in a year. Yeah. And as I told you, like, I did not intend, and I, during that flu flare and pulling out of it, and it really was my strength and ability to pull out of that, because I went right back to rock bottom, and I and I remembered all of those feelings, and like, it's not only the pain, and it's not only not being happy with how you look. There is just the depression, and the self-loathing. Like, I still, to this day, I wake up every morning and immediately my brain goes to trying to find what I did wrong yesterday. Like, oh, are you hungover? Did you drink too much? Did you smoke too many cigarettes? Like, it's just immediately, it's his voice. And I'm like, no, actually, I wrote a book. I've got a podcast I'm on this morning, and I'm going to go for a walk, but thanks very much. It's that internal voice that's always there. Yeah. That when the pain was bad and everything, like, I couldn't get past it. And so for me to look at, 1 year later, and to have dated this amazing guy for 8 years and said every step of the way, never getting married, I realized that I was saying I didn't want to get married again because I never wanted to be dependent on somebody. And what I realized when I pulled out of that flu flare was, I can do it on my own. I would love to have Sean, but up until that, like, there literally was a night that I realized that up until that point, I had an absolute fear of being without Sean. Like, I didn't feel like, and I never wanted to be that dependent on someone. Yeah. I can't, because you don't know, and you have to be able to depend on yourself. True. And I got to the point in December after the flu flare that I was like, I can totally do this. Like life would suck if he wasn't there.
Yeah.
But I have things in my life now. Like 2 years ago, I didn't. If he died, like I would never have been able to like get back on the horse and go back into dating.
Right.
I would have become the middle-aged, pathetic person who just kind of declined after being diagnosed with MS. You know, it happens. And like, that's what I was afraid of. And yet, you know, being forced because of the flu and everything to realize that, I realized I wanted to be married to him because he's like the coolest person I've ever met. And so I proposed to him, which was a bit horrifying to my 80-year-old mother. She's like, who proposed?
Yeah, that's hilarious.
And she's like, so he asked you to marry him? I'm like, no, I asked him to marry me.
And he said yes.
I know. And I lived with him with my 3 kids at that point. So like when I told my kids that I had asked him and he said yes, they were like, man, that would have sucked if he said no.
No kidding.
I said, I can't talk about it.
Awkward. So yeah, you talk about Sean, and he is this wonderful man that you're married to now, and very supportive, and you all seem to have so damn much fun together. I love your videos. It's just joyful to watch your videos, but I want to be on that boat with you, by the way. But
gotta get a bigger boat, and then everybody.
Yes, that's right. If people want to learn more about you, you know, buy your book, follow you, reach out to you, where can they find you? What's the best
my blog is BBH. So BBH is Boobs, Boots, and Hair.
Ta-da.
And really the explanation I can give to that is Boobs, Boots, and Hair has just become an attitude for me. It's when I talk
like
about
FUMS.
Yes. And when I was first diagnosed and I was still rocking it and I was exercising and doing all of those things, I always had the attitude, as long as I look good, like it doesn't matter what I feel like. And so when I met Sean and we were dating, people tend to comment on my boobs, my boots, and my hair. I don't know. I don't. But he noticed it. And so it became this thing that he'd be like, and I'd be like, does this look okay? And he's like, you're totally rocking the BBH. You got this. And so it became this thing, like anytime I needed like a spurt of, you know, like you've got this, it was, you're rocking the BBH. So BBH seemed like, you know, and I didn't realize, as I said, you know, back then I had like, you know, 10,000 followers, and I came to realize none of them know what BBH stands for. And I was devastated. And then I was like, you know, I don't know that necessarily they have to. I mean, it's kind of like a fun thing. Like I have one guy who's followed me all 6 years, and he just figured it out and sent me like a message on Twitter. It was like, how did I not know? I was like, I don't know, Chris, but it's so fun to see you learning it now.
Yeah, right. Right. A little nod. That's hilarious.
Exactly.
So it's BBH
with MS.com.
Yeah, awesome. And people can reach out to you there.
And from there is it is transitioning to a brand new blog, which is happening in the next 48 hours. There shouldn't be any downtime, but already there is, it's clearer to find things. And so there will be a button that just says buy the book and read the blog. And then in the future, there will be big lists of resources to learn more about cannabis. And I still have I've always had a really extensive MS resource guide, which is just like every podcast, blog, book, video that I could ever find about MS just went on this, just because there is so much out there.
Yeah.
And, you know, I used to, back when I didn't have a job and I had a pathetic life, that used to be one of the things I would do, is spend time looking for new sources and making sure that was, you know, I just tried to keep busy.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's a great resource. So that's something else to check out there. Well, Meg, this has been so much fun. I knew I was going to like you the first time that we were on a conference call together. And
because I said,
you dropped the F-bomb. I was like, oh my God, she's such an FUMSer. I have to get to know her. So,
well, I mean, you know, I'm known for my potty mouth, or my sailor mouth, as my husband says. And, you know, the thing I always try to explain to people is like, I don't ever use, we were talking about words are important to me. I don't actually ever throw that word out without considering the ramifications and my audience. And that's one of the things that, you know, I understand that people may be offended. And, you know, I frequently will have people, you know, if I post a blog post on Facebook, someone will say, you know, why the nasty, you know, words? And I feel like I deserve them, because I mean, this disease is nasty, and I get to say, fuck you. I really, really do. But it's also, as I said, words are really, really powerful. And, and you talk about visualizing, can empower. My whole attitude towards the disease has empowered me. And so, I'm going to continue to use my swear words and be inappropriate.
Amen.
Not to offend anybody, just, and not even really to gain attention. It's not like, oh, look at me, I'm bad and nasty. And it's just part of, I say it when I feel it, I think.
Well, it's an attitude. It's the same reason. That's where FUMS was born, because I got out of bed and, every day I say FUMS because that is empowering to me. I am speaking to this stupid disease as it deserves. I'm saying, like, get behind me, MS. I got shit to do. So I feel you, sister, and I love it. So we speak to this stupid disease as it deserves every day. We tell it FUMS. So would you please assume the position with your middle finger extended and give MS the salute it deserves on 3. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah.
1, 2, 3.
FUMS.
Yeah.
Am I allowed to say the fuck you?
You are allowed to say it. Go for it.
Fuck you, MS.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you listening to the FUMS podcast show. Be sure to subscribe to it so you won't miss an episode. You can do that right on the website at FUMSnow.com. While you're there, sign up for the free email list so you'll be among the first to know of any new findings in MS research, new therapies and products, as well as any blog posts and podcast episodes I release. Want to chat with others in the FUMS community? Join us on Facebook at FUMS Now. Thanks again, and don't forget to talk to the stupid disease as it deserves. Tell it FUMS every day.